listening to The Edward Fowler Show. Now, here's your host, Edward Fowler.
Welcome back to my show here on this edition of the Flashback series. I hope you're all enjoying the Flashback episodes, which of course have never made it onto my YouTube channel because they were in the audio format when I used to do it the audio way back 5 years ago. And this week, Flashback is voted by me, as it's going to be a great conversation when I had on the chat show host who works with Booker T, who is a commentator as well for Reality of Wrestling, and his name is Brad Gilmore. What a great guy he was. Enjoyed chatting to him 5 years ago. We talked about all sorts of different topics, and right now here it is in full detail for you all. Hope you all enjoy listening to this episode. Please welcome along from Reality of Wrestling and the co-host, that's what I'm going to call you, but again, you probably interrupt me now and say that's not right, but even so, the co-host of the Hall of Fame podcast with the 6-time world champion, WWE Hall of Famer, Booker T. Please welcome along Brad Gilmore. Welcome to an international show, and you know when you truly made it, because you are on the best podcast in the world. Welcome along.
Hey man, I'll take that. I appreciate the invite, Ed. I'm excited to be on. I'm excited to be. I'm now world renowned. I think I'm world renowned now.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are, and it's good. It's good to have you on the Fowler Show because you know I reached out to you a couple of years ago to try to get you on the show. We had some difficulty back then, but I reached you up on DMs in Twitter. Not usually the way I do it. I usually do an email way, but DMs would work, and luckily you saw it and you responded to me, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem, man. I'm excited to be on. I've seen you've had some people from the wrestling world on before, so I'm glad to add my name to the hat.
Yes. And did you? So when I got in contact with you, did you research me, making sure I was legit?
Well, I ran a few background checks. Called in my contact at Interpol. They said that you cleared, all the tests necessary. So yeah, you seem fine. You had my guy Alex Reigns on, who used to be in Reality of Wrestling, and I enjoyed listening to that.
Yes, I think he goes by Austin Reddick from Rocky Mountain Pro. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's what he goes by now. I knew him as Alex Reigns, and he's great talent. I enjoyed listening to him talk. Yes,
well, that's good. I'm glad you enjoyed that show. It was quite, interesting stories, some hilarious stories, because we have a good time here on the A's show, the best podcast in the world. No disrespect to your show, on ESPN.
Exactly, on ESPN 97.5. You have the A's show. You have the best show in the world. The only difference is we have a Hall of Fame show. It's almost like a little notch above, just slightly. It's the Hall of Fame, so it just has a nice ring.
Yeah. And will you be a Hall of Famer one day? Do you think, with your legacy in Reality of Wrestling and doing the co-hosting of Booker T's Hall of Fame show?
Yeah, you never know what's going to happen. You never know what's going to happen. You obviously never know what's going to happen at the Hall of Fame for the WWE. Obviously, I'm not in that conversation yet, but right now I'm working on it. I'm working on a nice little Hall of Fame career. I'm still starting up. I've only been in the wrestling business about 6.5 years now. Compared to a guy like Booker T, who's been in it 30 plus now. So I got a little ways to go, but you never know.
You never know, indeed. And and we want, it'd be cool to, in 50 years from now, to have you back on the show, and I could call you the Hall of Famer.
I would like
Gilmore.
that. I would like that.
Like that. Maybe even less than 50 years. I'm hoping way less than 50 years, of course.
Let's hope not.
Yeah, let's hope not as well. But I mean, so tell us about then how, you probably tell us all the time, but just for my UK listeners who may have never heard of you before, like, who is this Brad Gilmore guy? How is he working with Booker T of all people? Tell us, how did you actually get in Reality of Wrestling?
So I'm here in Houston, Texas right now. As I'm talking to you, I'm going to be as soon as I'm done talking to you, I'm going to hop in what I like to call Elvis, the King of the Road. That's my Ford F-150. I'm going to drive all the way down to Bush Intercontinental Airport. I'm going to hop on a plane. I'm going to go to Las Vegas, where Booker T and I going to be doing the Hall of Fame live from Las Vegas for the Manny Pacquiao fight. But to answer your question, it was about, I don't know, maybe now almost 7 years ago. I'm here in Houston. I was in a band, and we were playing music a lot locally, and that led to this opportunity to where we were interviewed on this radio station. And the interview went so well, the radio station called me aside and they said, "Hey, Brad, would you like to host a show on our radio station?" I was like, absolutely. I'd never done anything like that before. I was either 17 or 18 years of age.
Wow.
And so I said, yeah, absolutely. So started hosting the show. That led to another show. And so I was doing multiple nights a week. And then, like so many people do, Ed, when you wake up in the morning, what's the first thing you do? You grab your phone, and because you want to know who needed me during my slumber. While I was asleep, who tried to contact me. Sometimes it's Ed Fowler, sometimes it's other people. So I woke up, I'm scrolling through Twitter, and I was a wrestling fan growing up as a kid, like pretty much everybody is. Teenage years hit. I was more into the music thing. I was more into the women, and I got a little distracted from the squared circle. So I fell out of wrestling for about 4 or 5 years, and then anyway, I'm scrolling through. I see something from WWE. I'm like, I wonder what's going on at WWE. I haven't been watching in several years. So I look at that, and then they had Booker T tagged in something, and I'm like, oh man, Booker T, that's awesome. I remember Booker T. Houston, Texas, my first wrestling show ever, the first live event I ever went to. The main event was Booker T versus Rey Mysterio for the World Heavyweight Championship. So I'm like, man, Booker T's awesome. So I click on his profile, and then he has something about his school, Reality of Wrestling. And I knew he had a school in Houston. I never knew where it was. I didn't know anything really about it, but I knew that he had. And it said, hey, looking for announcers for my wrestling show. If interested, email this guy named Paul Cook.
Right.
So I emailed Paul Cook, and it was like on a Saturday morning. I wrote like, hey, I host a couple radio shows. I've got some background in sports, which I didn't at the time. But you say whatever you can to get in the door. And
do better lying.
Anyway, so 2 or 3 weeks go by.
Yeah.
I'm about to actually go do an interview with my group, and I'm walking into this person's house. I have these cameras all set up, and I get this phone call from a 323 number, which for all you international listeners, 323, that's Los Angeles, California. So I'm thinking it's something special, something exciting. So I answer the phone. It's Paul Cook, and he said, hey, Brad, we got your resume. Wanted to know, this was like on a Tuesday, wanted to know if you could come in tomorrow and have an interview with Booker and I. And I was like, oh, yeah, I could do that. So I go over there tomorrow. When I get there, there's no Booker T. I'm a little upset.
Oh.
And Paul was like, oh, yeah, he got called in to do something for WWE or whatever. I'm like, okay, no problem. So it was me and another guy. They put an iPad in front of us. We called commentary on it. I was awfully horrendous. I forgot the names of moves. I actually made some Donnie and Marie Osmond joke, which was very topical at the time, especially for a 19-year-old. And I just completely did terrible. Anyway, the next day goes by. I get a call again from Paul Cook saying, hey, can you come down to the school again tonight? Our ring announcer has strep throat, and Booker wants to meet you because we're thinking you could do the ring announcing. You've done that before, right? I said, absolutely. Never done it a day in my life. So I go meet Booker, but I'm sitting at his office. So get this. If you know this, in wrestling, I always heard everything as a test, right? Yeah. They test you on this, they test you on that. So I get to Booker's office. I'm supposed to have like a 7 o'clock appointment. Mm-hmm. I'm sitting out there. One of the guys, Kevin Bernhardt, who's still there today, he's the director and producer of Reality of Wrestling. He said, hey, we'll be with you in just a second. I said, sweet. I'm looking at the clock. Just a second, turned to 15 minutes, turned to 30 minutes, turned to 45 minutes, turned to an hour, turned to an hour and a half. So it was 90 minutes. And then the whole time this is going on, Ed, I'm thinking, oh, well, this is the test. They want to see if I'm really, I'm really engaged and I really want to be a part of this crew. So this is the test. Turns out it wasn't a test at all. Booker was just in the middle of some conversation and it went long. But I thought it was a test. So I go into the office. I see Booker T. He's this mountain of a man who I've seen my entire life, as going back to my earliest memories of wrestling, really earliest memories of life. I'm 5 years old when I discovered wrestling for the first time, and I saw Booker T. I knew who he was. 2001, I was in like the first grade. And I see him, this mountain of a man sitting there, and I say, hey, Book, what's going on? And he goes, hey, what's going on, man? Hey, you're a pretty good-looking guy. And I was like, Well, I appreciate that. And that was the first thing Booker T ever said to me. He commented on my physical attractiveness. And I have another story about that I'll come back to later.
Yeah,
So I
feel
sit
free.
down, I meet with Booker T, and at the time, Ed, you know Jim Ross, right? You know
Oh,
JR.
yeah,
good old JR,
absolutely. Who
Ross.
doesn't know
Absolutely.
Jim Ross?
Yeah. So JR suffered from this affliction called Bell's palsy.
That's right.
And, it's paralyzed part of his face. So I suffered 2 bouts of Bell's palsy myself when I was 18 and 19. And during this meeting, I happened to be right in the middle of my second bout with Bell's palsy.
Oh, no.
And I'm sitting there talking to Booker, and he's got this fan on his desk. And the thing about Bell's palsy is you can't blink your eye. You have to forcibly close your eye, or it takes every muscle in your body to try to shut your eye, right? It's terrible. So I had this fan blowing right in the eye that I can't shut, and my eye is like watering up like crazy. And like I begin tearing, and like tears are streaming down my face as I'm talking to Booker T for the first time in my life. I have tears rolling down my face, and I'm thinking, Booker's probably thinking, either this kid's nuts or wow, he's passionate about the business.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I do the interview. Everything was great, and I went to Reality Wrestling. It was that Saturday, had a taping. I was the ring announcer, and I did that, and then now I'm the commentator. I've been with Booker ever since.
Yeah, you have. Yes, you have. And I remember, and kind of say something for the record. I know many people from Reality of Wrestling inside their management will probably listen to this now, and I want to make sure to put this on the record that yes, I've seen Reality of Wrestling before it went on to Fight TV. Just wanted to remember that, people.
Oh, look at that! Look at that!
Yeah,
Yeah, so,
I remember.
You're a throwback. You're a throwback for us. You're one of our originals, which we appreciate.
Absolutely. I typed in Houston Wrestling on YouTube, and guess what popped up? Reality of Wrestling back in good old 2012 is when I came across.
Wow, that's when I started. I started in November 2012.
Right. Okay.
Is when I started with Reality Wrestling.
Yeah.
And I've been there ever since.
I was going to say, I saw you, on the taping as a ring announcer. I remember, and then I seen other videos, and then you transition into commentating and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it was good to see the transition as a new fan just watching and thinking who these people are and why is this guy now gone from a ring announcer into commentator. So
well, I'll tell you that. I'll tell you what the story behind that.
Go ahead.
Is we were getting ready to go do a taping at a comic convention called Comic Palooza in Houston. It was going to be a big show, and I was ready to ring announce. And this is the Thursday before the Friday show. I get a phone call from Booker at about 8:00 at night, and he was like, "Hey, so I was thinking about the show for tomorrow. We're going to kill you on ring announcing." And I'm like, "Oh man, well, kill me on ring announcing? That sounds a little harsh." And then he was like, "But we're going to put you on commentary for these shows." I was like, "Oh, okay." So I had never done commentary a day in my life. Obviously, just in the ring announcing. I was comfortable with ring announcing. So I called my buddy Rich Bocchini, who at the time was working at NXT as Rich Brennan, as the play-by-play announcer, went on to be the host of SmackDown for a second.
I
called him. I said,
mention something before you carry on? Sorry to interrupt you there.
Yeah.
He is now, of course, working for Major League Wrestling. You have great relationships with them because, as you may know, I've had a lot of wrestlers now on the Fowler show. One of my targets is to get Rich himself on the Fowler show at some point. Carry on your story.
I'll put in a word for you.
Oh, thank you.
I called him and I asked for all the information he could give me on commentary, and I was overly prepared for my first time, and it actually kind of was to my detriment. I was too into okay, I got to be a commentator. And I wasn't focused on being what sells wrestling, a personality.
Gotcha. A
personality in complement to the performers. And I was too worried about, okay, I got to get these little points in instead of trying to just let it naturally breathe and just almost, be yourself. I mean, that's the key, man. That's the key, Ed, on anything, but especially in entertainment. People see through BS so easily, especially when you're presenting yourself as yourself. Like some of the wrestlers, they're characters, but when it comes to the promos, if it's a written, scripted, too scripted promo, you're not going to come off as authentic. So people aren't going to feel connected to you. And that's what my issue was when I first started as commentary. People weren't connecting with me because I wasn't being myself. So then when I stripped that all away and I just started letting everything fly, throwing jokes out there, just being myself. That's when it started to all make sense. And that's when people started saying, oh, this Brad Gilmore, he's not so bad. He's pretty good at what he's doing. And that's when more opportunities came from that.
Yeah, exactly. And, sometimes you are quite annoying on comments. So I have to admit. So
good. That's the desired reaction. At times.
Don't worry. Please don't take it the wrong way. I mean it as a good thing, and I'm sure many other people will agree with me about you being annoying on comments. It's a good thing because you and the other commentator, I can't remember his name now, but
Matt Topolsky.
Yeah, Ed. You two have great chemistry. And I'm glad it's lasted all these years. And
the thing about Matt is he is one of the biggest professionals that I've ever met in entertainment. A lot of people are, kind of shoot from the hip.
Yeah.
They see it as maybe a stepping stone or maybe just something that they're doing as a hobby. The thing about Topolsky is he takes it very seriously and he wants to be a great broadcaster, and he is a great broadcaster. There's a guy who came from news. He used to host a news show 5 days a week that he would write himself. So he's got a legitimate background, and to have somebody like that who's so great and has such a broad vocabulary, so good at calling the play-by-play, and then to work off of him as sometimes a goofy, idiotic heel type character at times.
At times, he's the best. He's the best
at times. I appreciate it, but us complimenting each other and him playing the straight man and me being kind of the persona at times, it's worked so well. And I tell you what, I've had moments where, I got to call something with Impact Wrestling recently.
Yes,
I got to call some commentary with Rise a few months ago. It's really strange. It's kind of like those are fun. I do well at them, but Matt and I, it's just it's Lennon and McCartney. For lack of a better comparison, it's just for some reason the two of us gel really well together, and we know how to work off of each other. A lot of the times he'll tee me up for something, without even me asking. He'll know, if I say this, Brad will jump in and do this, and this, and vice versa. So It's worked out so well. And like I said, we've been doing it now, I don't know, 5.5, 6 years, just as, the commentary team, just the two of us. No third man. Sometimes, you have a wrestler sit in or whatever, but it's worked out so well. And I can't compliment him as a professional enough and the way that we're able to work together.
Yeah, exactly. And I hope you two work for the next, 20-odd years, because you two are the face and the voices of reality of wrestling. I don't think if Ed or yourself, went and, I don't think anyone could replace yourself with Ed. I don't think it wouldn't be as good. Yeah. I don't think it'd be as good as the.
Yeah, man. Matt, like I said, Matt's a top professional, one of the best in the business. So it would be hard for us to transition, to another phase of reality wrestling where he or I aren't calling the podcast.
Unless you got hired by WWE, because you never know that could happen since Booker T works for him.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, Booker's a Hall of Famer 2 times over.
Yeah,
he's got a couple. He's got some stroke around WWE. So you never know what could happen.
You never know what could happen, and you never know. You might even fire my. You might be able to take down this podcast if I say anything bad about Booker T. So I have to be careful.
He has powers.
Yeah,
and I think that he has supernatural powers in his dreadlocks. I think that they give him a supernatural power, for not aging a lot. He doesn't look any older.
No,
he always stays the same size. Yeah, he looks great. I mean, he wrestled back in January for us at Reality Wrestling. Or when he didn't come out of retirement, it was more of a fight, is what we called it.
Oh, yeah.
But he looked great then, and for him to be a Hall of Famer 2 times over, he's really earned. He's earned everything about it. And I think that if anybody, there was this whole thing with Matt Riddle recently that came up on our show where, Matt Riddle criticized Goldberg, and then, Booker was like, hey, man, why don't you work on your game before you criticize other folks? And then Matt Riddle called Booker like an old WCW wrestler. But for me, it's like, I was like, he's not an old WCW wrestler. He's a 2-time WWE Hall of Famer. Yeah. And there's only 3 other people who can say that besides him. It's Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, and Ric Flair. So if you make a top 10 list in wrestling, personally speaking, and Booker T isn't on it, you're nuts. You're absolutely nuts. This guy's the most decorated performer in WCW history. He came over, left guaranteed money, came over to WWE, became a world champion in WWE. worked main event of WrestleMania, had legendary programs with The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Triple H, others. He's been a tag team specialist, had tag team championships with Goldust, Rob Van Dam, Test, Scott Steiner, of course, his brother Stevie Ray.
Yep.
He's one of the most well-rounded. Harlem Heat, one of the greatest tag teams of all time. He is one of the most well-rounded wrestlers. Also, from the entertainment perspective, he's so funny. He can cut a great promo, make you engaged. Also, from the athletic standpoint, like if I were to draft, my roster, my dream roster, he's going to be a top 5 pick in the draft. He has to be, just off what he gives you alone. It's like, baseball is big over here in the States. There's this thing called a 5-tool player. That means they can run, they can steal, they can field, they can hit, and they can hit for power and stuff like that. And that's what, to me, Booker T always was. He was a 5-tool player. Any role you needed him in, he knew how to facilitate it. He knew how to, be the absolute best. That's why it's a privilege working with him on a weekly basis. I mean, I never thought, to go back to when I'm at Reality Wrestling, one day, I'll never forget, it was Valentine's Day, 2015.
Love's in the air.
I get a phone. Yeah, I get a phone call from Booker in the morning. I'm trying to get everything ready for my lady that night. I'm like, all right, we're gonna go to dinner, we're gonna be whatever. And so Valentine's Day morning, he calls me and he says, hey man, so I got this show on this radio station in Houston, and this is gonna be my first show where I'm just hosting it by myself, and I feel like I need somebody on there with me to help manage social media stuff and whatever. You want to come do the show with me? And this is Valentine's Day. And I'm like, absolutely. And that's how Booker and I started doing the radio show together. It was never like some grand design, or I came and pitched him, or somebody approached the two of us. He was doing the show, and he was like, man, it'd be great, Brad, because what's the weirdest thing, Ed, is Booker and I, for some reason, from the first time that I started working with him, we just clicked. Like I was talking about with Matt Topolsky, the other commentator, a minute ago. Yeah. He and I just clicked when we met. I don't know if it's because we live in the same city outside of Houston, Texas, called Friendswood, Texas. I don't know why. I really don't know why, because we're opposite in our backgrounds in every single way. But we just clicked with one another. And Booker and I, a lot of times, we would have these, long conversations in his office about the business and about wrestling and about where we can go, reality of wrestling. And then we'll talk about MMA and boxing and basketball. And we were just having these long conversations. And I was like 19, 20 years old. And some of these guys had been around Booker at the time for, 5 times, 6 times longer than I was around him. But for some reason, he and I just meshed. We clicked. And so that's why he was like, man, Brad would be great, because we're always having these long conversations about boxing and MMA and wrestling. And this is what my show is going to be about. Maybe he can help out. And like I said, we were on that station for about 3 years. And then earlier this year, we got a call from ESPN. They're like, hey, we want to bring your show to our station. We want to give you 3 days a week during the week, not tucked away on a Saturday.
Wow, and, not bad.
And we want to pay you more money than you're making now. Sounds great to me. Let's do it. Let's go. And so that's when we've been at ESPN. That's when we went from Heated Conversations, which was the podcast
that's
forever.
Right. I remember that one.
To the Hall of Fame. And obviously we called it the Hall of Fame because before we went live on that station, Booker had gotten the call that he was going into the Hall of Fame again. And it just so happened the day that we announced our new radio show was also the day that it was announced publicly that he was going into the Hall of Fame for the second time. So I was like, man, we got to call it the Hall of Fame. It just makes too much sense.
Yeah.
And I said, when we have guests on, we can say welcome inside the Hall of Fame and all that kind of stuff. So that's what we've been doing now. And that's why I'm about to go to Las Vegas. Like I said, as soon as I hang up with the great Edward Fowler, I'm going to hop in my truck, go to the airport, and go to Las Vegas to go continue the Hall of Fame journey.
Yeah, well, have fun in Las Vegas, of course. We're big fans of Las Vegas over here in Manchester on the Edward Fowler Show. Because it's my second favorite city to go to, if I ever did. Go to anywhere. It'd be Las Vegas, Nevada, the Sin City. You may come back a millionaire. You never know. But of course, enjoy Las Vegas with Booker T because it's gonna be a big event. And is it like a live with audience kind of thing? Would there be an audience there, or is it just
I don't know. It's going to be for the radio. We're also going to be doing the Radio Row for the big fight, Pacquiao versus Thurman. So it's going to be live. I'm sure there'll be people around. It's not like some of the other shows. Like we just did StarCast in February or March or whenever that was. I don't remember when it was. Maybe May. I don't remember when it was now. Whenever the hell it was.
Members. Okay.
Yeah, whenever the hell it was. We did that. Now it's in front of an audience, and that was cool. That was cool too, because Booker. That was the most like a professional wrestler I ever felt. Because Booker and I got into Vegas early that morning, or early that morning, like 1:00 in the morning. Went to sleep, had to wake up. We had a show at 10 a.m. And I get to the Caesar's Palace at like 9:45 or 9:30, something like that. And I find Booker finally. Walk around this gargantuan facility. I find Booker, and it's about 5 minutes till Tony Schiavone calls us over. He's going through the rundown with us of what they have planned. And then we're like, all right, cool. And we start walking toward the stage. And I said, hey, Book, what do you want to talk about? He's like, we'll figure it out. And to me, that was, we're going to call it in the ring, like a great wrestling match. I'm just going to call it while we're out there. And we actually prepared absolutely nothing and talked about absolutely nothing. And then on the stage, we went 2 hours nonstop, just having a conversation. And it was really entertaining. People who were there really enjoyed it. So pretty crazy time last time I was in Las Vegas.
Well, there you go. And that's what we do here on the Fowler Show. This show is not even scripted, I don't do any scripts. I dislike the word scripts. I'm like a Vince McMahon about that. Hate scripts. Don't have them on the show. We just do it off the cuff. I go with the flow. Whatever the first answer they give me, I just go with whatever we talk about next. It could be completely off the subject, but I hope you felt that here. But back to the producer and director, maybe, of the show, Kevin. Yeah. Well, he actually, when you say about Austin Reddick's interview, as you listened to, he actually tweeted. Now, I don't know, if he actually listened to the show or not. He must have done. I don't know how he knows about the show, but I thank you for listening, Kevin. But he says, he wrote a tweet something, come on down and say, hey, next time you come down. I think that is for Austin Reddick. He didn't need to treat me in that. I think that's for Austin Reddick, because I'm not in Houston, Texas, and
right,
and it's not one of the places I will visit because it's too hot, and the people down there are very idiots, aren't they? The fans of Houston. What do you think?
Whoa. Better watch yourself here, Ed. We've been off to a nice start here. You're talking about the great state of Texas, the former Republic of Texas.
Oh God! Don't get me talking on Texas. Are you a Houston, Texas fan?
Am I a Texans fan?
Yeah.
Like the football team?
Yeah.
Look, I love Houston, Texas. This is where I've grown up. This is where I'm born and bred. So I support every Houston team: the Astros, the Rockets, the Texans. Begrudgingly at times, the Texans. Right. They're not my favorite Houston team, but J.J. Watt, of course, probably the greatest defensive player of all time. We have some shine on us. I'm more of a basketball guy myself. But look, you just think, Ed, you can't talk about the great city of Houston, Texas like that, and the great state of Texas. We're the greatest state in the union by far. We're probably the greatest province, state, republic, country, territory, protected. We're the greatest piece of land in the entire world.
Yes, okay.
I think you could fit Manchester inside of Houston about 75 times or something to that effect. A very small city in comparison. So better not let that puppy dog mouth or that bulldog mouth overtalk that puppy dog tail. That's what we say down here in Texas.
Well, the only thing you can say about Texas, you got Booker T. That's it. Anything else you can't say nothing about. Astros, yes, they won it. They won the major, the
World Series.
Yeah, the World Series for the first time, back in 2015 when they won it again. But apart from that, there's nothing else in Houston to cheer about. Tell me about a team, basketball team, a baseball team, American football team, which won a major championship in the last, 5 years. Apart from
okay.
Go on.
Okay. Well, we also have a great football team, more in y'all's sense of the term football.
Yes.
The Houston Dynamo. We won the MLS Cup, 2 years in a row, in our first inaugural 2 seasons in the city. So, look, we're very great city. We have great teams. We just got Russell Westbrook to the Houston Rockets. Him and James Harden are going to do great. They did great in Oklahoma City. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the future of reality wrestling because that's also a Houston product. And we just had our 2 biggest shows back to back going into our pay-per-view, the Summer of Champions, on August the 10th. It's going to be streaming live on YouTube for the world to see.
Wow.
Yeah, the world will be able to watch the Summer of Champions. And as you and I are speaking, I'm not exactly sure when this airs, but if you go to the Reality Wrestling YouTube channel, you will see the last year's Summer of Champions 5 is available for streaming. That had a match with Juventud Guerrero, Chavo Guerrero Jr. Also had the Hendrix Havoc match, which our facility at Reality Wrestling is attached to an old mall.
Wow.
An old mall in Houston, outside of Houston, Texas City. And in this mall, there was a hurricane hit in 2008. So there was an abandoned section of it. So I said, wouldn't it be great to have a match in an abandoned mall? And we had that match. And this is going to be on Summer Champions 5, which is streaming probably right now when most people are hearing this on the Reality Wrestling YouTube channel.
There you go. Special shout out there. And of course, a few weeks ago, you had the opportunity to commentate on the Impact Wrestling's pay-per-view show kind of thing, like a free show, whatever it is. I bet, of all the people that sit next to you, I had to sit on the same team as Josh Matthews. The annoyance of Josh Matthews, I bet you were happy when you were, able to lead the venue, lead the commentary table after working with Josh Matthews, What do you what do you think about Josh Matthews, by the way? I've had some dealings with him on Twitter, tried to get him on the A show. He said he wanted to be on this show, but nope. Nope, he's an ignorant, isn't he? Was he ignorant to you on commentary?
Well, you know what? We had a great time on commentary. Everyone from Impact was A1 in my book. I didn't know what to expect for that show going in, and everyone from Josh to Scott D'Amore to D'Lo Brown, who I really enjoyed getting to know and hang out with for a little while. We talked a lot about basketball together, and everyone was really cool. And the talent they have is such a great. I said this. It's like a basketball team. I don't know if you know a lot about the Oklahoma City Thunder, but right now they're retooling. They're having to rebuild. They lost their stars. They're having to start from scratch a little bit. And I felt like that's what Impact has been the last few years. They've been trying to rebuild, trying to get a younger roster, some new draft picks, and see what they can build. And, people like Moose, I think, is really talented. Eddie Edwards is really talented. The Rascals, really talented. Tessa Blanchard, to me, and no pun intended, is the diamond of that entire roster, the diamond in the rough. She's so great at what she does, and that's just being a third-generation athlete. We all know what they can do, i.e. The Rock, Randy Orton, others of that same ilk, the Usos, Roman Reigns, all third-generation athletes. So it was really fun to do that show. I hope we do it again. And I can't say enough great things about the Impact folks.
Yeah, well, apart from that, if you do it again, make sure you do not have Josh Matthews on the team, unless you can make me portray, to keep him on the team. If you guys,
I'll see if Booker T will bar him from the arena. How about that?
Unless he appears on the A show, kind of thing. Unless we can somehow make it happen, get him on the show. Because me and him have got a lot to discuss here on the Fowler show, making it publicly aware, though, that, that me and Josh Matthews have got something to talk about. So if someone out there listening can make that happen, feel free. Make it happen. Bring him on the show. Be best for business. Now, speaking about reality of wrestling, will we ever see reality of wrestling do a UK tour, or even better, have a UK TV deal? We want it on TV here in the UK. Will we ever see it happen?
I know there's been some conversations over the years about doing both. There's been some television opportunities that have come up, just hasn't been the right deal. And also there's been opportunities that we're still looking at of going over there, doing some shows. I know the Booker and I are scheduled to go back sometime next year to do a Hall of Fame tour of live shows. We're going to hit Manchester, Dublin, Cork, London, and Glasgow is the plan.
No, it's not Glasgow. It's Glasgow. You gotta get.
Hey, look, brother.
You got to get it
I'm from
correct.
Texas, and I'm going to say it how I say it.
Oh, my
right?
God.
It's glass cow. We have a lot of cows down here,
You're
so
going to
it's
get
glass
booed.
cow.
You're going to get booed at the arena in Glasgow. It's Glasgow here in the UK. You can call it Glasgow. Yeah, there you go.
Well, you know what? I'll also hop on my lift and get in the levee and come over there or whatever. But I'm excited to come across to the UK when we do come over there, and I'm going to be wearing a big Texas flag on my lapel pin.
You're going to get booed out the arena. I can't wait. Send me the date of when you're in Manchester, and I'll make sure to interrupt your show with Booker T and I may get kicked out the actual arena, but I don't care. I'm going to make as much as I can to be there in person because I want to make sure you guys are not going to say anything bad about Manchester or get anything wrong about Manchester the way you say it. Because it's Manchester, as you would say in America.
That's Manchester.
Yeah.
That's how you say it.
Manchester.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Manchester. But, just probably saying this now, who from Reality of Wrestling or any connections you made now through the wrestling industry, who would you suggest to come on this show after you, Brad, from Reality of Wrestling or beyond?
We have so many great people at Reality of Wrestling that are all dynamic personalities. You have Gino, who's the youngest Reality of Wrestling champion of all time, won it on 3 separate occasions. He's a second-generation athlete. His father was the great El Sanguinario back in Mexico City. He'd be a good one. He'd be a great one. Also, the current Reality Wrestling champion, Ruthless Ryan Davison. He's a Grand Slam champion. He won the Reality Wrestling Television, Texas, and Heavyweight Championship, as well as the Tag Team Championship. So that's somebody who I definitely want to talk to. But you know who you would really enjoy, Ed? And he's a great Texan as well. He's, I would say you would really like talking to Kevin. We've talked about Kevin here on the show already.
Yes, we have.
He is the guy who has let Reality Wrestling get to the point that it is. Without Kevin, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. He is so talented. He is, without a doubt, the lifeblood of Reality of Wrestling. And I think that he has 10 years of Booker T stories, whereas I only have 6.5. So that would be somebody you definitely want to talk to.
Well, I doubt you have 6 stories of Booker T. You probably got thousands of them because you've worked with him.
Well, I have thousands of stories, but only 6 years worth. I will tell you this. Remember I told you the first time I met Booker, the very first thing he said to me was that I was a good-looking kid.
That's right.
And I have a Hall of Famer commenting on my physical attractiveness. Now, let me double down on that. We're doing the radio show, and we have a big guest, huge guest, champion of the world, Hall of Famer himself. We have the great, legendary Shaquille O'Neal on the show, and he's going to be there in person. So I'm excited. I'm a big Shaq fan. He's in my top 5 greatest NBA players of all time. So I go to do the interview with Shaq. In the middle of the interview with Shaq goes, "What's your name?" He asked this to me. I said, "It's Brad Gilmore." He goes, "Oh, I thought it was Leonardo DiCaprio." And he goes, "This is a good-looking dude, America. Brad's a good-looking dude." And then once again, Booker says, "Yeah, he is a good-looking kid. That's why he rides with me." And that's for the second time Booker T commented on my physical attractiveness, and then it was seconded by Shaquille O'Neal.
Nice. Yeah, it's good compliments, and I have to agree with Booker T. I think the only thing we can agree on here is it's about the whole thing about Texas. About that you do. I have to agree. You good compliments, and I agree with Shaq O'Neal and of course Booker T. And of course,
look, now I have 3 men commenting on my physical attractiveness. That was actually a goal that I set out to complete today. Oh. I wanted 3 different people, especially of the male variety, to comment on my physical attractiveness. So I appreciate that, Ed.
Well, you're welcome.
I'll tell my girlfriend that
I truly mean it, so don't worry, people. It's not like a kissing your ass kind of thing. I'm not kissing his bum. Don't worry about that. I actually truly mean it, okay? So make sure you listen to this. But yes, I mean, do you really want me to talk to Kevin, the director of Reality of Wrestling? Okay, is that correct?
Yeah, we will get this set up because Kevin can go on forever to talk about this. I mean, like I said, not only is he the director, he's the editor, he's a producer, he's a writer, he oversees promos, he creates story. I mean, he is literally the one-stop shop for everything Reality Wrestling. Other than the commentary, I do have the privilege of sitting in the writer's room and writing the show with Booker and Kevin.
Wow.
And every now and then Bruce Pritchard, when he's not busy with WWE. Before that, he was producing our shows as well.
Wow.
And the 4 of us were kind of a 4-man power team, all-star team, if you will. But now it's really Kevin, Booker, and I predominantly looking over the shows and coming up with ideas. I just last night was on the phone with Kevin for about an hour and a half, and we booked the rest of the year out So we have a lot of great stuff coming for Reality of Wrestling for the rest of the year.
There you go. And let me make sure you plug this. I may get shout out by Booker T himself. You never know. Facebook.com/Reality of Wrestling. On Twitter, I don't know. I can't remember now. It's like, I think it's at the ROW. Is that right?
At the official ROW, but we call it either Reality of Wrestling or it's the Row. So at the official Row on Twitter is where you can find us as well. And you can find me on all social media at Brad Gilmore.
Yeah, Brad Gilmore as well.
All at Brad Gilmore. I am the dress shoe wearing, Ric Flairin', good hair having, entertainment world champion. But you might know me by another name. You might know me as The Boat. #best of all time. #Brad's opinions are true.
Well, I don't know about #best of all time. I think that's up to the fans to decide that, and I'm hoping.
No, I've already talked to every fan in the world. They agree on the best of all time.
I don't think you have. I don't think you have to.
Even everyone in Manchester.
Oh, God.
I've talked to all the people over there in Manchester.
Nice accent, by the way. But nice accent, nice accent. But yeah, you need to send me the tickets. Yeah, not tickets. You need to send me the detail of how I can get my ticket to come and see yourself and Booker T.
You're on my list, Ed. Ed, you're on my list.
Great.
I don't know anyone else in Manchester, so I'll make an exception for you. I don't really like you that much, but I'll put you on my list.
Oh, you don't like me that much? Okay. We'll see about that in Manchester, UK. That's the only time you probably will see me in person, by the way, Manchester, UK, is where you'll see me, because, if anybody did, approach me and say, hey, come to this place or this place, I will probably decline it. If you want to see me in person, then join me in Manchester to see the best show, the best podcast in Texas comes to Manchester. It's not the best one in the world, not the best one in the US, but we need to make some kind of a award show where we get all the best wrestling awards podcasts out there, from the Bruce Pitchers to the Jim Cornettes to the Booker T's to the amateur ones like myself and on all the others, to team up for once a year, have like a Slammy Awards kind of thing for like the best.
I like that.
Yeah, maybe we could do something like that in a few years. And I don't know if you saw this yesterday, Brad, because you don't follow me back on Twitter yet. But I wrote out.
Oh, after that comment, I'll make sure I block you. But go continue.
Well, I will say, last week here on the Fowler show, I had on one of the biggest stars in the world, Marty the Moth. Okay.
Yes.
Now you might not be familiar with Marty the Moth. You might not know who he is, but will we ever see him in Reality of Wrestling?
He's actually performed at Reality Wrestling before. Before he was Marty the Moth, he came and performed at Reality Wrestling. Of course, people first saw him in the season of Tough Enough, where Booker was one of the coaches.
That's right.
And so we have that connection. And last time I saw him, we were at a charity poker event in Las Vegas late last year, December of last year. So I would love to have Martin back on the show. He's a great talent. He's a great hand. And he did well in Lucha Underground. And I don't really know what the future of that show is now. So we'd love to have him over at Reality Wrestling.
Well, you make it happen, because I get all the big names on with Chris Van Vliet or the other lady interviewer, Alicia Abbott, who didn't get on because they're missing the point. Now talking all about AEW, about the big buzz. I don't think so. I'm on about all the other big stars out there. So and you never know. You never know. I might be able to get on your good friend, the guy who said, "Oh, you look fantastic," Booker T.
Right. You never know. You never know who could come on the show. You never know, man.
It probably would never happen, but you never know. But we can't wait to have on Kevin, because I actually did tree out before going in contact with you, because I actually responded to his tree about Kevin to come on this show. Didn't respond, however, but probably a busy man. But that's when I knew that treat was not directed at me, but I knew better beforehand. But just to say that for a fact, okay? But I'll have to discuss him for that. But you heard it first. If Brad Gilmore is able to see my profile after today's interview, you better send him a lot of anger towards his way. From what was here in Manchester.
Manchester?
Yeah, good old Manchester.
There you go.
But maybe one day I might be able to appear on your so-called talk show with Booker T or the Hall of Fame. If you want to talk about wheel soccer, talk about the Premier League.
Hey man, shout out to Liverpool.
Oh,
LFC,
don't tell me you're a Liverpool fan, are you?
Yeah, I'm not a Liverpool. I'm a Liverpool fan by proxy, Matt Topolsky, who I talked about a second ago, he's one of the biggest Liverpool supporters you'll ever find in the entire planet. And it was good for LFC to come back this year, redeem themselves, for the Champions League final from that abysmal performance they had the year before. I was glad to see that the Reds could come back and prove that they belonged on the main stage.
Yeah, well, they still lost in the Champions League final, so, Oh, no, I think they didn't lose, did they? I was Tottenham out. But
they won this year.
Yeah, I was this year.
They won this year.
I was rooting for Tottenham to win. So, Tottenham better than Liverpool.
So then this time you're a loser. So it all worked out.
I don't think so, because I think we got more chances of United winning the Premier League than Liverpool winning the Premier League. It's 30 odd years ago since they won it, and they still can't win it. They need to get a hang of it and get in it. Get into victory. We've got more we've got more Premier League titles than any club, I think, in the UK in the Premier League.
Oh, isn't that good for you? I'm really impressed.
It is. You should come and check out when you come over. Maybe I can give you a guide tour of Manchester.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah, make it happen. Make it happen with Booker T. Driving around in his little sunglasses, in his little car, rental car.
There we go. Sounds good to me, man.
Yeah, well, let's see if that happens or not. Of course, as well, we got mentioned about outside wrestling. You do like a music band or something, don't you? You have a band or something?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have my group 2011. We've been together since 2006, actually. Put out a new record earlier this year called Too Much, our new song out there. So go check it out. Stream on all platforms, Tidal, Spotify, Apple Music, wherever it is. It's a passion project at this point. It's what got me, though. Without 2011, without those guys, Avery, Trey, Dallas, Tyler, without those guys, I wouldn't be in the position I am today, because it was that when I was 16 years old where I started, performing for the first time on stage in front of people. And that's really what propelled the rest of my career to what it is, to what, semblance of success that I've had today. I've way more that I want to achieve, but everything that I've gotten is because of where I started out. And that's why we're always going to be a group. We're never going to break up. We're always going to release music. It may not be every year, it may not be every 2 years, but we're always going to be together. We're a brotherhood at this point. And, I can't say enough about great things about those guys and everything that we've been able to accomplish together.
Well, I've heard bands say this for many, many years. The same as you said about never going to break up, a brotherhood for life. I bet in 30 years from now, you might want to regret that comment, but we'll see in about 30 years from now.
So Avery is actually, he's a producer, drummer, a multi-instrumentalist, singer as well. He and I have known each other since we were 6 years old. And trust me, if there have been plenty of points for either him to grow tired of me or vice versa. So I think we're pretty locked in for the long haul.
Yeah, maybe that's why you guys release one album a year or 2 years. So that's why that comment comes to life. There you go. There you go. There you go about liking each other so much. So who would you love to see come into reality of wrestling then over the next year? Who do you want to see come? Who you think would be a great asset to the company?
It's a tough question. There's so many great talents out there, and a lot of them are already signed, So as far as free agents, I don't know. But Tessa Blanchard, I'd love to have her back at Reality of Wrestling. We just had a big event in, January? And no, not January, March. And that was what we call our No Limits.
Yeah,
Chris Hero, a.k.a. Cassius Ono, coming from that. Jacob Fatu as well, who's a real great talent. He's going to be signed here momentarily. I'm sure he's a current MLW champion.
Yes.
So, there's so many great people out there who I'd love to have come through Reality Wrestling, and that's the thing with us. Doors always open. If you're a talent, Booker says cream always rises to the top. If you're a talent, we're going to find you, and you're going to be on the show. And there's always a spot for talent. Always a spot for talent. Interesting.
I like that. I like how it says talent. It doesn't specify like these so-called politicians. You tell them what they're going to do and they do the opposite. It's a bit like what Brad Gilmore was talking about there. You always find talent, but doesn't actually specify what that means. So I'm guessing, you're being vague.
Look, we're going into an election season here in the United States. So now all the political speak's coming out. So you got to remain vague. Don't let people know what your plan really is. Old school U.S. politics.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure Donald Trump will still remain your U.S. president for another 4 years.
Who the hell knows?
That's what's probably going to happen. I knew he was going to win in 2016 without, all the help of the Russians, but that's for another story. But all about over here in Manchester, it's all about Brexit. We want Brexit over here.
Right.
Again,
politics are above my pay grade. That's why I work in wrestling. They say that Washington D.C. is Hollywood for ugly people. That's why I don't really go over there or care about the political sphere. I care about what we're doing at Reality Wrestling. I care what I'm doing with Booker T and everything else. And then, Ed, I really appreciate you having me on the show. I got to run. I got a flight to catch. So I got time for one more. What you got for me?
Right, my very last question is to do with politics. Booker T, what is the chances of him being running for U.S. presidency?
I don't know about running for U.S. presidency. Now, this is not a joke. There has been talk about Booker in politics. He's interested. His long-term goal is to be the mayor of Houston, Texas. And I think that he would be a fine mayor. If you read his story, you read his books From Prison to Promise, especially, this is a guy who lost his father when he was 10 months old. He lost his mother when he was about 12 or 13 years old. He had to pretty much raise himself. First time he was ever arrested, he ended up in prison. And he got out of prison. He completely turned his life around. And he was a single father. He worked, digging ditches, worked as a security guard, worked sweeping floors in a warehouse. But he always did that job to the best of his ability. And that's what led him to the professional wrestling game. And that's what led him to the top of the professional wrestling game. He did that job to the best of his ability. And I think that if he were ever given the honor and privilege of being the mayor of Houston, Texas, or any other political power across the United States, he would do that job to the best of his ability, because that's the only thing that he knows how to do. And that's why I love having him as an example to follow, because he sets the example for me and for everyone else at the Reality of Wrestling. It's to do your job to the best of your ability. And if you do that, you're never going to have to worry about a paycheck.
There you go. Thank you, Brad Gilmore, for being on the Fowler show. I hope you enjoyed it, by the way.
I did, brother. I will see you in Manchester.
Yeah.
That
was my interview with Brad Gilmore there back 5 years ago. I enjoyed, again, listening back for the first time in 5 years. And it's amazing what has changed and, where he is today. And, doing all these great interviews like Jimmy Fallon and many other great celebrities in the US. He's doing some big things. He's got some music coming out now. He's a musician as well. So he is doing everything. He's not commentating or interviewing. He's doing great music. He's not doing that. He's doing something else. And all credit to him. He's been able to dive into many different topics and keep striving in 2024. And I wish him nothing but the best. And maybe in the future I'll go back on the show again. But until the next episode, whenever that will be, enjoy the rest of your morning, night, evening, or afternoon.
You've been listening to The Edward Fowler Show. Subscribe and leave a rating on Apple Podcasts or follow on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts to get new and flashback episodes every week. More on Facebook and Instagram at Edward Fowler Show and edwardfowlershow.com.